they told me they loved me. They gave me like the sweetest little notes about being the best stepmom ever. I mean, they really truly had embraced me. And so that day, like having to say goodbye to them and knowing that potentially was the last time I was going to see them, hug them, or any of that. Oh my gosh, so hard.
Welcome to episode 286 of the Nacho Kids podcast. We are coming up on the holidays. The holidays can be hard for everybody, not just blended families. But blended families can be much more difficult. We're not even going to go into all the reasons why, because we know the reasons why. If you're in a blend and you're listening to this, you know why. But if you are tired of feeling like a stranger in your own home, if you are tired of fighting about the stepkids, you need to join the Nacho Kids Academy. And guess what? Christmas is coming. Have your significant other buy you a membership to the Nacho Kids Academy. You will not regret it. It is life-changing. You put the work in, and it's not a lot of work, y'all. It's really not. Like 15 minutes of your day, really not a long time to change your life. All right. This is the last call. In just a little over 2 weeks, David and I will be having a meet and greet in Scottsdale, Arizona. If you are interested, you need to let me know 100% if you are coming, because I'm making reservations by November the 30th. Got it? You can email me at Lori@nachokids.com or contact us at nachokids.com. And Lori is spelled Lori. Okay, our guest today is Becky. Becky came back, y'all. As we mentioned last week, this is her second blend. So Becky decided not to just blend once, but to do it again. Would you do it again? Let us know. Be a guest on our podcast and share if you would or would not be in a blended family again and why. If you didn't listen to episode 285, you may want to go back and listen to it to get the full story of Becky. Very good information, very good podcast. All right, let's get to listening. Today, we have the return of Stepmom Becky. Becky, welcome back.
Thanks. I'm glad to be back.
So there were a lot of things we didn't cover.
Yes.
One thing was that your stepsons, are they both boys? Yes. Okay.
Yep.
Your stepsons have minor neurotypical issues.
Yes. One is like ADD. The other is there's not like one diagnosis. It's like he's got dyslexia, he's got dysgraphia, he's got dyspraxia, like all of these things that are just challenges for him from a learning standpoint and probably hold him back a little bit. But there's not like a specific diagnosis, which makes it really hard on his parents in terms of knowing what's right and wrong for him.
Right. And do you feel like from the outsider, it doesn't matter what you think kind of mentality? Do you feel like that they're doing the best they can for these kids?
And
I'm saying that from a non-judgmental place.
Yeah, I think it's complicated and it's hard, especially with the younger one that has the multiple different issues going on. In the time that I've known him, especially, like he's come a really long way in terms of his learning and reading and writing and all of that stuff. If I have to say where I feel like maybe they could probably be, I don't want to say improve. That sounds judgmental. If I was going to tell them to do something different, I think they're both babied a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
They don't quite have the expectations put on them that like I put on my children, which I know different kids, different parenting styles, all of that, but even just like some basic responsibilities around the house and stuff like that. I think, their parents have been slower to get on that train. And I see it as, an issue for them. But,
right. I know my son had a friend at school that was autistic, or still is, of course. And anyway, this child had more responsibility than I ever put on my son. And I was talking to his mom about it one day, and she said, I need to make sure he can take care of himself.
Yeah.
And she said, the difference is your son will figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
My son needs to be taught.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, and that's kind of like my approach with my kids was always I wanted to raise them up to be good roommates one day or good partners for somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
So I probably was harder on them than some moms would be. I mean, they were both like doing their own laundry by the time they were 10 and they were helping with the chores in the house and all that stuff, which was awesome for me. You know, and what's funny is, you know, about my partner's kids, the younger one who has more challenging learning issues, he's like way better at jumping on a lot of this stuff. I don't call them rules, like things when we moved in together that were important to me, like put your chair under the table, put your dish in the dishwasher if it's open, you know, not just in the sink, making your bed in the morning. Like those were, I don't call those rules. That's just manners to me. And he adapted a lot quicker than the older one is more struggling, which is funny to me because you wouldn't think it would be that way. But the younger one just jumped right into those things.
Well, the age could be the problem.
True.
You know, the older one's more set in their ways.
Yeah.
Or, you know, they just may be a more rebellious child.
Very true. And, you know, and I do try to be aware, like, they had a different life before they were living in the same house as me because they were, well, when their mom, I don't know everything that goes on in their mom's house, obviously, but I know they don't have chores or expectations or things like that. And when they were with their dad, you know, my partner, they would help him out some, but, you know, it was like a frat house, 3 boys living together. So, you know, some of that stuff wasn't as big a focus for him, which he's been, you know, definitely trying to be supportive about that. But it is definitely one of those areas I've realized I have to pick my battles and decide what really bothers me and what's worth being frustrated about. You know, like the chair thing, not pushing the chair under drives me crazy, but then I'm like, it's not really worth me being angry about it or getting fed up about it or whatever either. I just need to get up and go push the chair under or ask my partner to push the chair under.
Right. And is it really worth even getting mad at your partner about?
Exactly. Exactly. I can't remember the last time if we talked about like when we first moved in together, we had like an issue with snacks. Like my kids always had snacks and they were pretty good about not like cramming them in their mouth. And that was kind of a newer thing for his kids. And they were like eating 8 oatmeal cream pies at one time. And like they couldn't walk past a bag of chips without opening it up and eating some chips. And it was driving me crazy. And I was finally like, number one, what can I do to control this situation? Well, I can only control myself.
Mm-hmm.
And the access that I'm providing. So one, I was like, let's put all the snacks up and then we don't see them. And then they won't, you know, feel compelled. Like we put them in that cabinet above the refrigerator that nobody can reach.
Yeah.
You know, and I was like, and let's put out healthy snacks. Let's put fruit in the bowl instead of chips. Let's chop up, you know, peppers or whatever and have them in the fridge. So when they want to go grab something, they will actually grab those things, which is wild to me because my kids wouldn't have eaten that, like fruit or vegetables, especially. Mm-hmm. They'll grab them and eat them. So part of it was like, it was the same, what you just said, like, let me think about what's worth being angry about and frustrated about, or how can I just circumvent the situation, be smart. It's like that saying about you got to play checkers, not chess sometimes.
Yeah.
And so I was definitely playing chess with, and that's not been an issue at all. And what's really funny is none of the rest of us were even eating those good snacks anymore, which is a good thing, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. And the difference might have been simply they just didn't have it when they were younger. And it's like, oh, I'm going to eat this up while we can.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know my sister, we never understood why. We were a pretty big family, I guess, 5 of us, which at the time was a big family, until you start talking about step families.
Yeah.
But my sister would always take food and hide it in her room.
Oh, wow.
And we never understood why, because we were never held or kept away from food. But she always wanted to hide food. We'd always find extra food in her room.
That is funny. I wonder what that was about, you know?
I don't
know. Like you hear about that with some kids, especially kids who have been in foster care, things like that, that they, you know, they grew up with food insecurity so that you can understand why they would be kind of like hoarding food. But that's interesting. My family I grew up in, you know, we had some snacks and stuff. My parents, I won't say gave us the healthiest eating habits. We all grew out of that eventually, which was good. But, you know, they certainly were more of like the catering to the meals, you know, like my mom would cook the same like 5 meals that us kids would eat versus trying to push us and try new things or whatever. So, you know, good, bad, or otherwise, I've just tried to go a different direction with my kids for sure.
Yeah. My son, I don't know if I mentioned this, but he told the doctor one time that he might need his sodium levels checked because I feed him high sodium frozen meals for dinner.
Oh my
And my
gosh.
child was 7.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Thankfully, the doctor knew me very well. And he's like, you're lucky she feeds you at all.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, one thing too, you were in a previous relationship,
Yes.
a previous blend. And I want to go back for just a second and talk about how hard it was for you to feel like you were losing those kids
Yeah.
and that your kids were losing, quote, quote,
Mhm.
siblings.
Mhm.
So, how did you handle that? Because I actually know several people that are going through this right now. So, I think it's a good time to talk about how you looked at things, how you felt, what you learned from it.
You know, when I look back on that relationship and the how it fell apart and just the way everything happened, it was so hard to say goodbye to those kids because I knew he wasn't going to allow them to have a relationship with me. And I had talked to their mom a little bit and she said she would support it however she could. She and I had no issues with each other. But it was just hard, they at that time, those kids were young enough, they didn't have social media, they didn't have cell phones. So, I mean, my access was going to be limited. And without him encouraging it, I got to see I guess I would call her my ex stepdaughter, a couple times after I had moved out. And then he shut that down real quick. And, my ex stepson, I saw him in passing. I had to go to that old house a couple times to pick things up or drop things off. And I, would get to see him out in the street. But I mean, it broke my heart. Those kids felt like my kids. I had been around them for so long. And I had honestly never considered the idea that, if when I was with my ex, if that relationship was going to end, that I didn't have legal rights to those kids. Like I logically knew it, but I never thought about what that was really going to be like. And it was tough. And then, him, the ex moving in, the girlfriend that he had been cheating on me with, and all of that. When all of that happened, I knew, I just knew that I had to do right by those kids, and doing right for me with them was letting them go even further. They were going to have to adjust to a new life. They had enough struggles with him being their dad and the very contentious relationship he had with their mom and having this new woman in their life. I just didn't want them to feel torn. I didn't want them to feel like they had to have loyalty to me or anybody. I just wanted them to be happy, and so that's when I really stepped way back. And we to this day, we're in touch through social media a little bit. They send me, birthday greetings, which is so sweet. And like, well, now that stepson had graduated, so I sent him graduation present, and the daughter's getting ready to graduate. So, but it's kind of like that. It feels like that distant aunt relationship now, and I miss them. I mean, I really miss those kids a lot, and I'm hopeful as they continue to grow up and be adults that we'll maybe reconnect a little more. But their dad is still with that woman, and so I'm still just very aware that's their life they have to live in, and I want them to be happy and as comfortable as they can be. And the irony is, they both figured out he had been cheating, and so to this day they don't really talk to their dad very much. um,
Oh,
which also makes me really sad for them too, because I mean he wasn't a stellar dad to begin with, but not having a father relationship is really hard. Now they have a stepfather who seems to be doing really great by them though. So that's good too. But I'm like, their life's just complicated. I don't need to, my desire to have a relationship and be connected wasn't worth causing them more trauma, potential trauma or strife or loyalty binds or any of that stuff. That was just kind of where how I approached it.
well, and a lot of times, a lot of people don't even think about that. Like,
Mhm.
you love them, they want you to stay in their life, you want to stay in their lives, but that could cause even more loyalty binds with the
Mhm.
new person
Yeah.
and the ex step.
Yep.
Not only that, but when you started dating somebody else, could
Mhm.
you imagine if you said, "Oh, well, I get my stepkids every other weekend, my ex stepkids."
Yes, that you took the words right out of my mouth. I thought about that too, that well, one, I kind of needed to shut the door on as much of everything with that relationship as I could so I could go on and heal because it was so terrible. But, I thought about that. I was like, how weird would that be to have to go to pick them up or go see them or have to put myself in the same environment as their dad, who I would hope I never see again,
Yeah.
So it was just, thinking about the future and what I wanted my life to look like and what I wanted their life to look like. Even though it was so hard and it made me so sad, it felt like the right thing for them. And I think as much as they could, I think they understood it because I always told them, I'm always here. You need me. You have my phone number. You can call me on, DM me, whatever. I will always answer you. And I think they got that, hope
Yeah.
so.
So you still have a little bit of contact with them.
Yeah, yeah. And it's been more just, as time has passed and their lives have gone in other directions, my life has gone in another direction. It just feels like that's the right thing for them.
Yeah.
But I still miss them. And I worry about them. So I worry about them still so much to this day. I hope they're okay. I really do.
Oh, I'm sure you do because you cared so much about them and you were a part of their lives for so long.
hmm But
Yeah.
I'll tell you the day that I knew was the last day I was going to see them both in that
Oh, you're
house.
making my heart hurt.
I could cry thinking about it. Because they had fully embraced me. They told me they loved me. They gave me like the sweetest little notes about being the best stepmom ever. They really truly had embraced me. And so that day, like having to say goodbye to them and knowing that potentially was the last time I was going to see them, hug them, or any of that. Oh my gosh. So hard. So hard.
Did they know that was the last day?
They knew I was moving, so they knew I was moving in a couple days. So I think they knew I wasn't going to be in the house anymore. I don't know if at that time they fully conceptualized it could have been the last time they were going to see me, and I did see him a few times after that, but I don't know if they really fully realized it. But they definitely knew that was the last time we were all going to be under the same roof, and they were sad. They were really sad.
Were they there when you moved out?
No,
Okay.
they were with their mom.
Okay. Yeah, because I was gonna say that would have even been harder.
But it was hard. Those last couple weeks, like as we were dividing up the belongings and like I was packing and stuff. There were boxes. My daughter and stepdaughter shared a room. So like she saw half her room get packed up, and I tried to keep it as unobtrusive as possible, but you just can't avoid some of it, when you're packing up toys and clothes and beds and stuff. Some of it is it's just in their face. And I just tried to always like love on them and hug them and just act as normal as I could when they were there. But I'm sure, they felt it and it probably felt pretty awkward those last couple weeks.
Yeah. Yeah. It's hard.
Mhm.
Did your kids ever say anything like, "We miss them"?
My daughter was really close with his daughter. They were only about a year and a half apart in age. And like I said, they had shared a room for a couple years and stuff. It definitely, she missed her for a good while. And then I think, she kind of readjusted. She knew she was really concerned. My daughter is like the sweetest kid in the world, or young lady. She's 18. I should call her a kid.
Yeah, I know
She
it's hard, isn't it?
yeah. She was really worried about me being happy and being okay. Because she was there. She was the main kid in the house when a lot of that stuff was going on. And even though I was trying like my best to not show it or for her to not hear the fights or the arguing or whatever, she saw more of it than any of the rest of the kids. So I think, she just really wanted me to be okay and she wanted me to be happy. And when we moved out, into our house that she and I lived in, because my son had gone to college at that point, I think that was really her focus. She was trying, for us to be like together and happy in this brand new house and making it the best we could.
Yeah. Now, talk about the bio mom now. We talked
So,
about last time
yeah,
that, she's not very fond of you,
no,
yet she wants to do a vacation with everybody.
it is the weirdest situation. And prior to when my partner and I got engaged, we've been engaged for almost a year now. Prior to that, like she and I didn't have any problems, I would say. She wanted to be friends, but I'm like the boundary queen. So I was like, I can be nice and social when we're together and we can be Facebook friends but I'm not going to be like hanging out with you one on one, which is what she wanted.
Mm-hmm.
Strange, because I mean, that just feels so weird to me. Or I'm
Yeah.
not going to be like your texting bestie and, like I just was very like clear about my boundaries. We got engaged is really when it felt like everything changed. And there started being like this pattern of, every time we would go on vacation, the first day we were on vacation, she was blowing up my partner's phone, angry about something, usually something ridiculous. That has happened multiple times in the last year. The day before we moved in our house that we're in now, she tells him, "Oh, I think I'm going to get divorced from my husband. I'm going to need y'all to be extra supportive." Now, that's been 2 months, 3 months ago, and they're not divorced. They're just as normal as they ever could be. The last time we were on a trip a couple weeks ago, and just like a weekend before that, we were supposed to have his kids, and she kind of changed the schedule at the last minute, which she tends to do. So we didn't have them. Unbeknownst to us, my family was throwing us a surprise engagement party. So we walk into my sister's house and everybody's like, surprise, whatever. And it was like nice time, good time, whatever, right? Some pictures get posted on social media. And then she's mad. And so on the first day of this trip, which was 2 weeks after the party, she's blowing him up about how dare we have an engagement party and not have the kids there. And we're terrible. And we obviously don't value the kids and blah, 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 blah. And he was like, hey, number one, it was a surprise to us. We didn't know the party was happening. And
Right.
number two, we were supposed to have the kids. So the kids would have been there if you hadn't changed the schedule.
Yeah.
It's just stuff like that. And then, so all of this weird stuff goes on. And in the midst of all that, like she unfriended us both on Facebook over the summer when we were on yet another vacation and said it was because, it wasn't because of anything we had done, but, her heart hurt looking at all these trips and going to plays or concerts or these family events, we were having. It hurt her heart because she was still grieving the life they lost. Now she left him. She left my partner. She divorced him. She's remarried. She's been remarried for like 3 years or more now. And I'm like, what?
Yeah. And I asked you if she cheated and you said yes.
Yeah. So anyways, there's just this whole pattern of all this like weird stuff that's been going on since we got engaged. And then at the same time, she's asking him about us going to Disney World, all as one big happy family next summer, or asking him why I'm not coming to their youngest son's IEP meetings and stuff. And I'm like, lady, you can't have it both ways. You can't say you don't want to be part of it, see our life, whatever, and then also be mad that I'm not involved in that stuff.
Right.
It's the same thing. Like right after we moved in, I shared that we had like the first 2 weeks great. Everybody was happy. It was a good time. And then she did whatever she did in that like 36 hours with the kids to make them feel uncomfortable around me. And at that time, she reached out to me through text and, was asking some questions about what had gone on because the boys were feeling some kind of way. And I was like, hey, all I did was I said, to the youngest one, I told him to quit playing on the stairs and not to climb up the outside of the railing of the stairs.
Right.
And I said, we together, my partner and I were like, let's start making our beds and let's put the chairs under the table. And oh, by the way, don't fart in front of Becky and her daughter. That's not good manners. And she like she calls those rules and they were like very offensive to her at that time. And I was like, okay, I mean, your manners, but whatever. And,
Yeah.
So it's just all this weird stuff. And even in the last week, since we recorded the first podcast, we have the worst trauma we've had. And it's just been like one fight after another, after another. She ended up, I have a TikTok account that I had her blocked on, and she's been blocked on all that stuff for a long time. So she's used somebody else's account to find my account. Okay. Mm-hmm. And so she saw one I made about nacho kids. And it was about being quiet. And like the hardest part with a, HCBM is being quiet and not being involved. I didn't say her name. I didn't tag her. On my TikTok is anonymous. Like nobody knows me out there.
Right.
And she, again, used somebody else's account and saw it. And so this, past week, she started like blowing up my phone, like with some really not nice things saying to me, And my partner was sitting there and he was like, just block her. He was like, just block her number so she can't text you.
Yeah,
So
100% blocker.
yeah, so she's blocked and, and then she's like trying to follow my daughter's socials. And it's just been like a crazy, crazy week since the last time that we talked. And I don't understand it. And I have a lot of anxiety because we have like family events coming up. The older son does like a karate type thing. He's going to get a black belt. And part of this fighting in the last week, she was insisting I not come to the ceremony for him to get that. And of course, my partner's like, no, she's absolutely coming. But I'm like, so like next week, I got to go and be close to her in a like public space. And I'm like, man, I just hope she doesn't want to talk. Hope she doesn't like try to start anything, that we can just be focused on the kid and celebrating him. And it's just super stressful and just creates a lot of anxiety for me, which I'm trying to manage, but some days are better than others.
Yeah, but I'm thinking if she's got such issues with you and seeing y'all be happy, why would she want to go anywhere on vacation with y'all?
Right, right. But I think it just all comes down to I believe in her mind, until we were engaged, she still thought of my partner as hers.
Uh-huh.
Like she could call him day or night and he would answer the phone. If she needed to change anything with the kids, he was totally agreeable because he's kind of that person. And I really think she has her husband who's not super involved with the boys. And, maybe he's not showing. I don't know. Kind of seems like it from the outside now.
Yeah.
But, he's not super involved. So it's kind of like, I believe in her mind, the primary relationship was still her and my partner when it shouldn't have been. It should have been her and her husband. And I think this feels like a breakup to her. Like the fact that he would prioritize my needs or want to do something with my family and his kids versus, like she always liked to have like one birthday party for the boys. And so my partner would go, and he doesn't really have a big family. It's pretty much him and his parents. And so he would go and he would be there, like at her house with all of her family.
Mm-hmm.
And I told him, I was like, hey, I mean, that works for you, good for you. But that feels like a big, weird boundary crossing for me. That's not how I treated my kid's dad. We had a super clear relationship. And I was like, I even said to him, I said, have you ever thought about like her husband? Like, do you think he feels weird that you're around all the time like that?
Yeah.
And I don't know if my partner ever thought about it, but I think he has since I said that, because I've seen some changes. Like he's trying to create some distance and some boundaries and stuff. So it's just so weird. It is just all, she just wants to be in control. And the fact that I won't play her game and I won't talk to her, like be her bestie and go out with her and stuff, I think just really makes her mad.
You're driving her crazy.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The non-reaction, I think, makes it 100 times worse for her than if I was actively fighting and arguing with her,
Yeah. Now, how would she know that TikTok was yours?
Right. Right.
Yeah.
How would she see it? I'm no fool. I mean, I before she unfriended me on Facebook, we were connected there, but like I had blocked her on every other outlet, even LinkedIn, all of it. Like I was like, no access to my life. And she, so she used somebody else's account, and then I don't know, like on TikTok, you can turn on this button to see who views your profile. Mm-hmm. And so that's how my daughter called me the night all that was going on. And she was like, Mom, she's got another account because look, I can see her looking at my stuff. And so she also created another account, obviously, to look at it. But I don't know.
Yeah, that's creepy.
It's just a lot, and it's petty, and I don't understand any of it. I mean, my kid's dad, their bio dad, he got remarried, and, his ex-wife or his wife and I have never had any issues, but I'm also like super respectful. Like I've only been in their house like twice. And I think that was when my daughter was graduating, because we decided to do one big all family combined graduation party. I'm not calling him up and like telling him about my marital woes. We only ever talk about stuff for the kids, and it is few and far in between, because I would have said we co-parented, but I think as I've become more educated with thanks to Nacho Kids, I think we parallel parented, even though we were doing the same things and we didn't have any conflict or whatever. I let him parent how he was going to parent at his house, and he let me parent how I was going to parent at my house. And we didn't like intermingle much unless we needed to, or it was something for the kids.
Right.
I just don't understand why people want to have conflict with like the stepmom. Like if they're being good to your kids, why not just let it be and let your kids be happy?
Right. Exactly. Exactly. It's just so complicated.
It is. And I wanted to tell you too, I want to give you some credit. I took your advice last time we talked. I was telling you how strained I felt, especially around my older boy,
Hmm.
because I can tell he feels very conflicted. And so, one, you talked about him being in a loyalty bind, and so I've done a lot of reading on that, which has been super helpful for me. But then you also gave me the suggestion of like do something low key, like just have a low key, easy activity, like not a big game night, not we're all going to interact face to face and try to pretend to be one happy family or whatever. And so,
Hmm.
we this past weekend we were like, let's just watch a movie. And so it ended up everybody agreed to it, and everybody came upstairs because we have like 3-story house, and we all like sat in the living room, and he was there, and we just watched the movie. And I could see him like relaxing. Like it didn't feel like he was being pulled in any direction. It was so low key, and we laughed. And like even like there were a couple times that I like he thought a spider was on him at one point and kind of freaked out. And so there I was like kind of teasing him a little bit, and he was laughing. It was good. And I was like,
Yeah.
all right. That was good. Low pressure. I didn't feel stressed about it. Obviously, he didn't. The little one is already, kind of over a lot of stuff. He's been like super snuggly the last weekend, which was really nice.
Yeah.
But thank you for that advice. I'm gonna keep doing that for a
You're
while and
welcome.
see how
And
that
that's great. I'm so glad that you saw the positive in that.
yeah.
And if you wouldn't have seen any positive, that just meant he wasn't ready.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think a movie's great because you can have interaction after and a little bit during, but it's
Yeah.
not like playing a game.
Yeah. Yeah.
And not that playing a
Or
game
even
would have been a
dinner.
bad idea, but and that's
Yeah.
good.
Yeah. Or even like dinner, like we're not like the hugest on everybody sit down and have dinner together, but we try to do it a couple times when the boys are here. And like this was the next night, like I made dinner and we sat down, and the older one came and ate, and then he got up and left the table, which is not really what his dad wants him to do. He likes him to like stay there, be
Hmm.
polite till everybody's done. But he left the table, and like before I would have been like, oh, I can't believe he left the table. Why don't you tell him to get back over here or whatever? And I was like,
Yeah.
just let it go. He was here for the meal. That was a win. I'm just going
Yeah.
to take the win where I can.
It's
So,
not hurting you
yeah.
at all. And it might bother dad,
Hmm.
but even with dad, if dad forces him to do it, it's going to annoy the kid.
Hmm.
And if dad didn't force him to do it prior to Becky
Yep.
and dad's doing it now, then guess what? It's Becky's fault.
Yep. 100%.
Anything that has changed since you came into the picture is your fault.
Yep. 100%. And that is a really hard thing for me to accept. That's reality for them, not reality in real life, but that's their reality. But that has been a really hard thing for me to accept over the last few months.
Yeah, exactly. And it's one of those things that, well, let me back up. I do want to tell you that don't be surprised that when you get married, things change again.
Hmm.
That can be another reset. Maybe not with the kids, but probably by a mom.
Lord
Yeah.
bless.
Block her on everything you can.
Yeah.
And don't answer the phone for numbers you don't recognize.
Good advice.
I don't. They get a voicemail. If they don't leave a message, that's on them. Yeah, and I'll get
I
text
think
messages sometimes from numbers I don't recognize, and I don't even reply. I used to go, "Who is
yeah.
this?" But now, no. If you want me to know who you are, you'll tell me.
I would like to ask for a piece of advice from you if I
Sure.
can. So, part of my concern with the way that she's being, and like, not wanting me to go to this like karate ceremony, and then they were going to do a joint party for him the next day, like at a neutral location. And I had already told my partner, I was like, hey, I don't think I'm gonna go to that. I just don't feel super comfortable right now in that whole environment. So he was already fine with that. But then of course, when all the fighting that happened, she was like, y'all can't come to the party, whatever. I feel a little conflicted in things like I know you always say, like, if it causes you stress, don't do it.
Right.
Right.
Mhm.
So, like, some of these, if they get back into doing more of these kind of family group activities where everybody's there, if I choose not to go because it causes me stress and anxiety,
Hmm.
am I like risking making that kid feel some kind of way? Because I don't want him to feel like I don't want to celebrate him or be there, but I also am very much about protecting my peace and my mental health and wellness. So I'm kind of like struggling with that, like feeling like worried I'm going to alienate the kid if I'm not at all of those events.
And that's 100% valid. Here's the thing. The child probably knows there's some stress. I'm sure they can feel the tension if y'all are
Mhm.
all in the same place.
Mhm.
It's uncomfortable for them. You can support that child 100% without going.
Mhm.
You can say, I know you're doing great. I'm proud of you. Congratulations. Your dad's going to take a lot of pictures and show me, and I can't wait to hear about it when you get home. Now, if the kid says, Becky, I want you to go, then you have to make that decision of,
Yeah.
okay, can I tough it out?
Mhm.
Because same thing happened with me with the kids. There were times that once I started nachoing, I was like, I'm not going. I don't want to be around anybody. I'm good. And one day, one of them came up to me and he said, are you going to go to our basketball game? And I looked at him. I said, do you want me to? He said, I'd like for you to. I said, yes, I'll go.
Yeah.
Because then I knew he wanted me to go.
Mhm.
But I also know there were times that they asked me and I couldn't because like their game was at 8 and Jackson's bedtime was 8:30.
Mhm.
And so I know I'm going to get some complaints. You should have made Jackson go too. Look, my life was much better with my kid on a schedule. That's all I'm going to say. But if I said, honey, I'd really like to go, but I'm sorry, it's just going to be too late. And I don't want to deal with Jackson being grumpy in the morning. And I'm sure you don't either.
Yeah.
And I did the same thing. Your dad's going to take pictures and I can't wait for you to come back and tell me all about it. Because even as parents, sometimes we can't be at everything.
That's true.
But don't let bio mom not wanting you there make you not go.
Yeah.
So if you're okay going, but bio mom's just saying, no, I don't want you there, Becky,
Mhm.
screw
Mhm.
her. Go.
Okay.
As long as it's not going to cause a fight between y'all
Yeah.
and the kid's going to be uncomfortable. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because she doesn't call the shots.
Mhm.
Now, again, if you're going to go and she's going to say something to the step kid, oh, your dad had to bring her, and it's just going to cause drama,
Mhm.
then, you have to make the best decision. And when I say screw her, I don't mean it really ugly.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's Southern for she don't matter.
Yeah. Yeah.
But also, this whole her planning to have a joint party
Mhm.
and then get mad at y'all and saying, no, you can't come,
Mhm.
that's ridiculous.
Isn't it?
And I'll tell you that we have recently had to deal with the joint party thing with the step kids. So the step grandkids had two separate parties planned. Something happened. Bio mom didn't get to have her side of the party. So she decided to want to join our side of the party. Our side of our party was at our house.
Mm.
David said no. So we live a couple of houses down from David's parents. So the grandkid or the step kid asked the grandparents if they could have it there. And they said yes.
There you go.
So bio mom busted up in there with her boyfriend and her mama. And
Mhm.
yes, it was awkward, but it wasn't about me.
Yeah.
That party was about that 2-year-old little girl.
Yeah.
And I told David when all this started with oh, mom wants to come to the big party or whatever. I said, I will not be the reason that she cannot come.
Mhm.
I don't want her here on the property. I don't want her in the garage. I don't want her in the house. But if you're okay with her being here and everybody else is, that's fine. I just would prefer her not be in the house.
Yeah.
And he's like, no, I don't want her anywhere near here. And
That
really, he didn't like the fact that it was going to be at his mom's either,
yeah.
because that's not, in his eyes, neutral territory.
Mhm.
So it was a little awkward. But let me tell you what happened. We had another grandkid's birthday party the next day. So she got invited to that one too. So we spent the weekend with my husband's ex.
Oh my.
Yes.
That's interesting. I can't say that I had ever thought about like what it would be like one day with grandkids. So my kids' dad and I, like I said, we always were fine, but except for the very first year we were separated, we did joint birthday parties for the kids. We
Hmm.
felt like that was the right thing for that first year. After that, it was never even a conversation. Like, you do a party for our daughter, our son, when you want to. I'll do a party when I want to. It never was an expectation. It was never a conversation. The only times we did it were for graduation. When they both graduated high school, we
Hmm.
decided to have one big party because that just worked better, and everybody was fine. But like, it blows my mind. Like, the fact that my partner and his ex have had so many birthday parties and so many events together, and I'm like, that is just wild to me. And he
Yeah.
says he does it because he thinks that's what the kids want. But I kind of question, is that really what the kids want, or is that just what she wants because she also wants him to pay for half the party?
Right.
Um,
Well,
but I'm like,
I
I just
think, a,
don't get it.
yeah, I think a lot of times it gives the kids false hope,
Yes.
and it gives bio mom false hope, apparently.
Apparently.
Yeah.
Um,
And I get, like, my son, we said, okay, for my son's graduation from high school, we're going to all get together at this restaurant
mhm.
and celebrate Jackson. And I told him to tell his dad. If his dad wants to come and invite that side of the family, just let me know how many. Was it awkward? Shoot, yeah. Like, it was really awkward. The second one, 6 months later, his graduation from getting his associate's degree, was a little less awkward.
Yeah.
Now, by the time he gets his bachelor's, we're looking at another year and a half or 2 years. So that one's going to be really awkward again. And then we're going to have a wedding, and then we're probably going to have, the grandkids coming. So it never ends. It never ends. And I tell you what, it's easy to take any comment that is made by your partner's ex personally,
Hmm.
because something was said, and I'm like, how was that meant? Because,
Yeah.
I've learned to question myself, or to question my thoughts. And I was like, I don't know how it was meant. So there we go. I don't know how it was meant. So I'm not wasting any time thinking about it.
Yeah, it's funny. So I was at a work retreat yesterday. I work in the field of child welfare, so I work with a bunch of social workers. And we were talking about like meeting our clients where they're at, like where they are. And I
Mhm.
was sitting there listening to this person give this speech about, looking at things through the lens of your client. And I was like, one day I aspire to get to the level of personal growth where I can look at things through the lens of biomom and not feel angry and not take everything personal and just, let it roll off my back. And I was like, I am not there yet, but I would sure like to be there one day where it just doesn't even phase me.
Well, and that's like when the stepkids said, mom wants to be included. I said, I get that 100%. I wouldn't want to feel excluded. So I can see that part. But then part of me is like, well, she chose not to be a part of this family. That's her punishment.
Hmm.
And that's wrong of me. I know that's wrong of me, because whatever happened, happened. And that doesn't mean that she should feel left out or excluded from parties celebrating her grandkids.
Would you feel like that about your son's father?
That he shouldn't be excluded.
Or yeah, or that, he chose to not be part of this family, so that's his punishment.
No.
Isn't that interesting?
Hmm. Yep. No, because I could have easily said, I'm not doing anything with your dad.
Mhm.
That's his punishment. He can't come to your party. He has to have his own.
It's so interesting, just like the dynamics of all of it. And even like talking about a minute ago, we were talking about the choosing to go to events for the stepkid or not based on how I'm feeling. And, just the whole dynamic of being in a blended family and the complexity of like your emotions versus what you think you should be doing for the kid in the role of a mom. I'm using air quotes like you can see
Hmm.
me in the role of a mom, or same thing like how I feel about my kid's dad versus bio mom, and just the difference and I know part of it is history and how we've been treating each other anyways and all of that. I'm aware of all that, but it's just so complex. Like, I don't know if people knew, and they should know, right? should know. They should listen to like this podcast and things like this before they get into a blended family. But I don't, if people really knew how challenging it was, I don't know if anybody would ever get in a blended family.
You're right. And here's the thing. David and I are 15 years in. We went through it. You know, we went through it. But there's still challenges. But I have to say, there were times over that past weekend, I had to pull out my nacho hat and put it on. And I did so proudly. I'm not letting you steal my joy. You do your thing. I'll do mine. As long as you don't step on my toes, we're good.
It's tough. And I'm proud of you for being able to do that. And I got to say, too, like, I am so thankful for the transparency that you and David have shared with your journey and all of these different, stepmoms and even the stepdads that have been on the podcast, just for being honest about the challenges of it.
Yeah.
There's so much I feel like in life that we gloss over and we try to paint the rosy picture. And like, I think about like when I had my first child, I was the first one of all my friends to have a baby. And so, nobody told me how hard it really was. And so,
Right.
and in comparison to other kids, he was a little angel baby, but it was so hard and there was so much emotion tied up in it. Like, kind of became my mission that like when all of my friends got pregnant for the first time, I was like, hey, let's have a real conversation. And I'll tell you as much or as little as you want to know, but I'm going to be completely honest with you. I'm not going to give you this rosy view. And the same thing, getting married and divorced, like whenever I've had friends going through that, I just kind of feel so compelled to talk about it and be like, let me just be honest with you. Let me tell
Right.
you.
It's not like you're trying to be a Debbie Downer.
Yeah. I feel like we're so much from a cultural standpoint, and especially when it comes to parenting and especially when it comes to blended families, like we just don't talk about it enough and we're not honest about it. And everybody's so judgmental that I just wish more people would talk about it. And I'm so thankful that you guys started this program and that you have this podcast. And I don't honestly know if I could have gotten through the last couple of months without it, quite honestly.
Well, thank you. David and I have said this before that it was hard for us to do this. Nobody wants to share their dirty laundry. But we felt it in our hearts that we had to help other people because nobody told us how hard this was going to be. I don't even think people could prepare you for how hard it's going to be. But now we've got those tools that we can share with other people to help y'all. And hey, look, every time I share them with y'all, they're helping me too. It's a reminder of what I need to do. And a lot of times to step back from things. And I'm sure that somebody could say, well, that's not your real step grandbaby. Well, let me tell you something. Those step grandkids, they don't have a clue right now that I'm any different than anybody else. They know I love them.
Yep.
At some point, they're going to realize I'm not quote, quote, blood, but that's okay. Again, that doesn't lessen my role in their life.
Yeah. Well, and I'm really grateful too. Like sometimes it takes me a little bit. I'm a person who has to process my emotions a little bit to understand, am I really angry or am I sad? I talked about grief the last time we talked, and like that's definitely an emotion that takes a lot for me to process. And I'm so thankful to because I've been listening to your podcast pretty much nonstop for, the last couple of months, and just hearing other people talk and helping identify like what am I really struggling with and what is really my trauma and where am I the problem and the issue and what can I control? And I mean, there's just so many things that go through my head, I can't care more than the bio parent cares and all of those things. And like, even the conversations, my partner has been so supportive of this whole journey for me. He doesn't always, he doesn't really understand the complexity of my feelings, but he always listens and he always tries to understand. And, I've been sharing with him all kinds of things I've been hearing on the podcast and things I've been hearing you say. And I'm so thankful that he is supportive because I know not everybody is when you take the nacho approach. For some dads, I'll just say it's really hard because they want somebody to be in that mom role to make their life easier. I'm just so thankful I'm not in that situation.
100%. And a lot of times it is the man just wants it to make their life easier, but a lot of times it's they don't know how to be the other role. How am I supposed to be mom and dad? kind of
Yeah.
thing. And so I think that, and a lot of it again goes back to that innate human nature of you woman, you cook.
Mhm.
I make money, you cook, you take care of kids. And so a lot of that just falls into that. And I think that's why it's easier for men to step back to.
Probably.
Yeah.
And, like, I try to even, like, I use some of that, like, even in our own house, like, I take care just because it's me, I'm a person who I'm always gonna be cleaning or messing with something in the house, but, like, his boys' rooms, I don't clean them. I don't change the
Mm-hmm.
sheets. I don't do their laundry. That is their domain. He can take care of that. They have their own bathroom that they share, those boys. I'm like, "I'm not cleaning it. I haven't cleaned it once since we've been here." He's cleaned it once, I think, but I'm like, there are some areas that I just have to it will set me off too much. And so I'm like, I'm just gonna nacho that whole area of the house. I'm gonna take care of the main parts, the parts I'm in that, I interact in, that my, kids interact in. And otherwise I'm just gonna let it go. And when I think about it, I'm gonna shut the door so I don't see
Yeah.
it.
Yep. Exactly. That's like some of the stepkids stayed over here this past weekend. And I told David, I said, you might want to check up there and make sure there's nothing left that needs to be brought down here, like a coffee cup or, whatever, empty the trash. And because if I go up there and see stuff, it'll drive me crazy.
Yeah.
Because I'm thinking, how hard would it have been to bring the sheets down for me?
Hmm.
If I was staying at your house, I'd want to wash the sheets for you.
Yes.
But again, it's funny because they still look at this as their home.
Yeah.
And I have to remember that. Just because they moved out, it doesn't mean they stopped looking at this like home.
And that's great. Like, I love that. I hope my kids still feel like this is home when they're as old as David's kids are.
Yeah, but what's funny is, like, I'm hoping the same thing with my son, but when I think about, like, his kids being here when we're not here, I'm like, "Nah, man, I'd rather that not happen." But with my son, it's like, "Sure, no big deal." And
Yeah.
again, it's not intentional.
I know. It's so weird. It is so weird to wrap your head around and
It
try to
is.
just live in that space and be okay with the weirdness of it all.
It is. Well, Becky, thank you so much for coming back. And
Absolutely.
I made a note already that I'm gonna have you back in a couple of years.
Lord knows what'll be going on by then.
Yep, so we can see how things are going.
Maybe I'll be all zen and everybody will be happy and getting along by then. Maybe.
Yep. We'll see. And then we'll have you back a couple years later, and then there'll be a hiccup.
That's right. It'll all be right back to where it is now.
But you know what? That's life.
Yeah.
We wouldn't appreciate the good times if we didn't have any bad.
Very true.
And I'm thankful for what Dave and I went through, not only because it has blessed us to be able to help other people, but it has made our relationship stronger.
Mm-hmm.
And it taught me the tools to keep using through these challenges that we have, to where the whole issue with the birthday thing didn't affect me for a month.
Mm-hmm.
It affected me for 2 seconds. It's like, okay.
That's good. That's aspirational. That's where we all need to get to, where you're
Yep.
at right now.
And I may have said this before, but there was this lady on like 2020, that Quinones guy was interviewing this woman. And he said, well, people realize that, or you do realize that people think you murdered your husband. Her response was, okay.
Yeah.
That was it. It wasn't, no, I didn't, or I hate they feel that way, or they're lying, or too bad for them. It was nothing but, okay.
Mm-hmm.
I love it.
Yep.
I love it.
Yep.
And David has made me a shirt that says, and we sell it at nachokids.com/store, that says, and that's okay.
Love it. I'm going to buy one.
Yep. Check the sizes, because some of them will say size up. Just saying.
Okay.
But we are going to have you back. Definitely.
Well, I would love to come back. I appreciate you and David so much.
Well, thank you so much, because that means a lot to us. Sometimes this isn't easy to do. And we get a lot of, I don't want to say, I'll just say it. We get attacked a lot because people don't understand the method. So they want to attack it. Mm-hmm. And that's okay. And it used to bother me. But then I realized that most of those people end up coming to me 3-4 years later and wanting to know more about it, because they finally hit a struggle.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
They're probably secretly reading the Facebook page, taking the advice. They just don't want to admit it.
Yep. Be careful with that Facebook page advice, though. Some of it's off the chain.
Oh, it is. It gets spicy.
It does. I have to watch it. Girl, I have to nacho the nacho group sometimes. Because I'm like, I'm about to go off on you people.
Yeah.
They're like, no, you don't tell the step kid to do that. What's wrong with you? Did you not read the rule number 1?
Oh, yeah.
Yep. Well, you have a great day and a good holiday season.
All right. You too. Thanks, Lori.
Thank you.
All right. Bye.
Bye-bye. We hope you enjoyed part 2 of our interview with Becky. We really appreciate her sharing her story and coming back. That's awesome. And I always say that I want people to come back 2-3 years down the road. But y'all, I'm going to do it. I'm going to reach out to people that were guests in the past to see how much their stories have changed. That is going to be awesome. All right. Don't forget Scottsdale, Arizona. Last mention, folks. I'm not going to talk about it next time because it'll be too late then. And also, join the Nacho Kids Academy. Your life doesn't have to suck. Until then, remember, life is good when you nacho.